Chosen one, lock your attention on what I am about to say and do. Not let your mind wander for even 1 second. That restlessness you have been carrying all week. The feeling that something is being decided without you, somewhere you cannot see. That is not anxiety. That is discernment. 2 people are in a serious conversation about you right now, and the moment you feel the weight of that land in your spirit, I need you to understand something. The stars did not align for this message to reach you today by coincidence. There is a reason this arrived in your hands at this exact hour. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, today. The enemy is working overtime right now for one reason, and one reason only. He sees what you cannot see yet. He sees the conclusion of a conversation that heaven already finished, and he is terrified of the moment you find out what was said. It all ends here. The silence, the wandering, the nights where you replayed every interaction, trying to figure out where things shifted. But here is what you need to hear clearly. It is not ending because of luck. It is ending because of what you have done. Think back to that moment earlier this week when you almost said something. Maybe you were standing in front of your phone, typing out a message you had written and rewritten 4 times, and then you stopped. You deleted it. You stayed silent. You walked away from an energy that was pulling you to react. You did not know it then, but that restraint sent a signal into the spirit realm that cannot be undone. You did not lose control. You passed a test the enemy designed specifically to disqualify you. If something just shifted when you heard that if the choice you made this week looks completely different now than it did 5 minutes ago, press the like button. Not as a habit, as the moment you agree out loud that what looked like losing was actually the test passing through you. You did not find this message by accident. The algorithm did not bring you here. The Holy Spirit did. This is a divine appointment that was written before the foundations of the earth were laid. You are standing at the edge of a revelation. Stay through every second of this, because in the next few minutes, I am going to reveal the exact nature of the conversation being had about you, and why the stars have marked this specific season as your moment. I am going to hand you the spiritual verdict that silences every lie the accuser has planted in your mind this week. And at the end, I am going to give you the declaration that seals this chapter shut and opens the next one. Do not click away. You're everything you have been believing for, and they are begging you to stay. It has been weighted like something enormous is pressing against the ceiling of your life, waiting for permission to come through. Maybe you have been moving through your days normally, going through the motions, but inside, there has been this low hum of awareness that something is shifting in a dimension you cannot fully access yet. Maybe you woke up at 3 in the morning this week and your first thought was about a specific person, not because you were thinking about them before you fell asleep, but because something pulled you out of rest and placed them directly in the center of your awareness. Or maybe it was something more subtle. Maybe you found yourself pausing in the middle of an ordinary moment, doing dishes or driving or sitting in silence, and you felt this sudden and unexplainable certainty that your name was being spoken somewhere, that a decision was being made, that a conversation had moved past the point of casual and into something serious. You feel suspended between 2 worlds, the one where nothing has visibly changed yet, and the one that you have been praying toward, working toward, holding in faith even when it felt foolish. And in that suspended place, the enemy has been whispering a very specific lie. He has been telling you that the reason this feels so heavy is because the conversation going on about you is not going in your favor. He has been replaying specific moments in your mind. That moment you did not show up the way you intended. That season when you pulled back instead of pressing in. That version of yourself you are not proud of. And he has been telling you that is what they are talking about. That is the version of you under discussion. That is why the silence has been so loud. But I need you to hear what the scripture actually says about this moment. Romans 8:31 says, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" Listen to what that promise actually means. It does not say if God is for us, no one will ever talk. It says if God is for you, it does not matter who or what positions itself against you. The conversation the enemy wants you to fear is not the conversation heaven is having, and heaven has already spoken your name with favor. You are not in a trial, you are in a verdict. If that word just replaced something inside you, if verdict just landed where trial has been sitting, type amen in the comments, not as a filler, as a legal agreement with what heaven already decided. The heaviness pressing down on you right now is not the weight of judgment. It is the weight of imminence. It is the atmospheric pressure that arrives right before something locked begins to open. You have felt this before. You know the difference between punishment and anticipation. What you are feeling is anticipation. That moment when you walked away, when you stayed silent, when you refused to chase and beg and perform for an outcome you deserve without performance. That was not weakness. That was not you losing the conversation. That was you becoming someone worth the conversation. That was the strategy. Leave something in the comments. Tell me about the moment, the message you deleted, the conversation you walked away from before it could cost you. The energy you refused to chase, even when every part of you wanted to react. The moment you did not know was a strategy until right now. Name it here. Someone else reading it will recognize their own moment in yours. Now let us go deeper, because what you need to understand is this: that conversation happening about you, it did not start with people. It started in the heavens before any human being opened their mouth, before any name was whispered in any room. There was a discussion being held in dimensions you cannot see about a life you have not fully stepped into yet. Imagine the cosmic court of heaven, a grand council where your destiny is not merely debated, but actively authored. This is not about gossip. It is about the unfolding of divine purpose, and the reason it feels like the whole world is suddenly shifting around you, like things are moving, like something is about to change, is because it is. You are the subject of a divine negotiation. The very fabric of reality is being rewoven around your emergence. And the stars are not speaking casually. They are speaking urgently, like celestial heralds announcing a momentous arrival. But here is where most people miss it entirely. They feel the shift. They sense the movement, a stirring in their soul like the first tremors of an earthquake. They have the dreams, the signs, the fleeting moments where something deep inside them whispers, "This is it," and then they shrink. It is not a lack of belief in the possible, but a profound deficit in self-worth. They do not believe they are worthy of being the vessel through which such wonders unfold. They have been carrying a version of themselves meticulously constructed from the shards of other people's pronouncements. Someone else spoke their identity into existence before the Creator had the chance to whisper it. And the deepest tragedy is not the imposition of another's definition, but the tragic acceptance of it as truth. You became a prisoner in a cell built by words that were never yours. Think about Gideon. When the angel of the Lord appeared to him, Gideon was not poised for victory. He was in a state of profound hiding. He was threshing wheat in a winepress, a place designed for the crushing of grapes, not the beating of grain, a physical manifestation of his fear. He was performing an act of survival, disguised as a productive endeavor. His actions were out of alignment with his true calling. And yet heaven did not address him as the terrified man he appeared to be. Heaven declared him a mighty man of valor, not as he was in that moment of hiding, but as he had been eternally designated in the divine blueprint. The angel's purpose was not to encourage a man shrinking in the shadows, but to awaken a giant who had forgotten his own strength, to remind a lion that he had been living like a mouse for far too long. Drop a word in the comments, one thing that someone who truly saw you once spoke over you, that you have not yet fully allowed yourself to receive. The thing that was said before the fear had a chance to argue with it. Put it here. Let it exist in the atmosphere outside of your head for the first time. And that is precisely the cosmic drama unfolding within you right now. Because the conversation being held about you in the celestial realms is not about your catalogue of failures. It is not about the stumbles, the setbacks, the quiet seasons, or the years that felt like they dissolved into oblivion. They are eternal. They wait. They patiently await the appointed time, the prepared vessel, the soul that is ready, not necessarily perfected, but prepared. And something about the exact coordinates of your life right now, something about this very breath you are taking, has sent a resounding signal to heaven. Ready is now. The moment of divine activation has arrived. Type this in the comments. This is my moment. Not when everything aligns. Not when the fear is gone. Now that comment is your signal back to heaven that you heard it. But here is where the revelation deepens, and I implore you to remain present, for this is the precipice where many turn back, paralyzed by fear or misunderstanding. The celestial beings engaged in this profound discourse about you, not all of them are simply cheering you on. Some of them are watchful, even concerned, not with malice, but with a divine urgency, because they perceive a brilliance within you that you have yet to fully embrace and embody. There are individuals, both seen and unseen, who have been observing the unfolding narrative of your life, anticipating your arrival at thresholds you have hesitated to cross. Your mentor, whose counsel has been silent for months, is still observing your inner landscape. The person who first recognized your potential, whose early belief in you was a beacon you may have almost extinguished from memory. They have not forgotten you, and operating on frequencies beyond our immediate perception, there are forces intrinsically aligned with your ultimate purpose, poised to advance the moment you take your first courageous step. Doors do not spontaneously swing open on their own hinges, but neither do they remain eternally sealed against the divinely chosen. They simply await the signal of your willingness to push. And what is about to be revealed, I ask you to lean in to stay with me, is the part that will likely challenge every deeply ingrained assumption you hold about the reasons for your perceived delays. Because, let us be honest, you have probably crafted an elaborate narrative for why things have not manifested. Perhaps you have labeled it as unfortunate timing, a cosmic lottery you lost. Maybe you have placed the blame on external forces, on others who you felt thwarted your progress. Or perhaps you have spiritualized it, declaring it was not God's season. And yes, there are undeniable moments where divine timing operates with sovereign precision. But often the perceived delay is not a withholding from heaven. Sometimes the delay is a reflection of your own internal landscape. It is not about your sin or your failures, not in the way you might fear. It is your fear masterfully disguised in the cloak of patience. It is your avoidance adorned in the elegant costume of preparation. There is a profound difference between a soul being divinely prepared and a soul using the concept of preparation as a legitimate excuse to remain inert. And if you are willing to look with unvarnished honesty, truly honest, you know which of those has been your reality. Consider the story of Joseph. He did not choose to reside in the pit. That was a destiny imposed upon him, but from the moment he was extricated, he moved with purpose. In Potiphar's house, he served with an excellence that radiated from within. In the confines of prison, he interpreted dreams with unwavering faithfulness. He did not wait for the perfect, sterile environment to fully express his gifts. He showed up fully present and engaged in every imperfect circumstance until the perfect moment finally dawned. And when Pharaoh's summons came, Joseph was not merely ready. He was profoundly prepared because he had steadfastly refused to allow any external environment, however dire, to diminish the essence of what heaven had called him to be. That is the archetypal model for us, not waiting for external conditions to miraculously align. Someone is in a pit season right now. Not by choice, it was imposed on them, and they are doing what most people do inside it, waiting for the environment to change before they decide to show up fully within it. They have not heard yet what Joseph understood, that the pit was not the interruption of the assignment, it was the corridor to it, that the prison did not pause the preparation. It was the preparation, that the gift expressed faithfully in an imperfect circumstance is not settling. Through the link in the description or the pinned comment, a seed planted here is what keeps this word moving into the Potiphar's houses, into the prison cells, into the seasons that look nothing like what was promised. Every seed that comes in is someone in a Joseph season, hearing that showing up fully in the wrong environment is exactly what produces the Pharaoh moment. As you give, bring with you the specific season you are in right now, the one that does not look like what you prayed for, the one that feels like a detour from the assignment rather than a corridor through it. Place that season inside your seed. Trust that the same God who turned a prison into a platform is already moving on the imperfect circumstances surrounding you. What I am praying over every seed, the season that looks nothing like the promise, the one where you are showing up faithfully in an environment you did not choose and cannot yet see the purpose of. The door that closed when it should have opened, the one that still does not make sense. The one the enemy has been using as evidence that the assignment was never real. The version of yourself you have been waiting to become before you allow yourself to show up fully. The one you keep deferring until the conditions around you feel worthy of it. The fear beneath all of it that if you give everything to this imperfect season and the Pharaoh moment never comes, you will have spent yourself entirely on something that did not lead where you believed it would. Stop holding your hands closed, waiting for the environment to deserve your full presence, withholding the gift until the stage feels worthy of it. Preparing indefinitely, instead of stepping in, is the very agreement that keeps the pit from becoming the corridor. Your Pharaoh moment is not as far away as the length of this season has made it feel. And this brings us to a deeply uncomfortable truth, a confrontation with a reality that most souls instinctively shy away from: the divine conversation happening in the heavens about your life. It is not a monologue of unadulterated celebration. It contains a profound tension because there is another voice present in that sacred space. There is a force that has also been speaking your name, and its intonation is anything but divine. There is an adversary, a spiritual opponent, who understands the blueprint of your assignment with an acuity that may surpass your own. And this realization should cause you to pause. The enemy does not expend energy on the inconsequential spiritual opposition, is not a marker of divine disfavor or a sign that you are cursed. It is, in fact, a powerful testament to your inherent significance. The persistent level of resistance you have encountered in your life, the soul-wearying cycles that seem to repeat endlessly, the doors that slam shut just as your hand reaches the knob, the relationships that fracture at the very moments of critical connection. These are not random occurrences, they are targeted. And being targeted is irrefutable proof that you matter profoundly. But here is where the confrontation escalates, where the veil is lifted even further. Coming up, I am going to reveal to you the hidden agreement you unknowingly entered into, the invisible contract that has been granting the enemy legal standing and operational access within your life. Stay with me, for this is a revelation that can liberate. Because beneath the surface of spiritual opposition, beneath the weight of broken patterns and the relentless march of recurring cycles, there lies a silent agreement you have made, a concession to limitations you were never designed to accept. It was not a document signed in a physical courtroom, nor was it a conscious, deliberate choice made in a moment of clarity. It was a moment perhaps years ago, perhaps in the tender vulnerability of childhood, perhaps in a season of soul-searing pain, where an event transpired, and in its aftermath you drew a conclusion. And that conclusion, forged in the crucible of that moment, solidified into a covenant with limitation, a covenant with diminishment, a covenant with the muted version of yourself that others found palatable, that did not threaten their comfort. Perhaps a figure of authority, someone whose opinion carried immense weight, told you that you were too much. And in your formative years, You internalize that decree as gospel. Perhaps you experienced a public failure, a moment of profound exposure, and the residual shame led you to the conclusion that the safest path forward was to never fully commit or risk again. Or perhaps you were granted a fleeting glimpse of your own inherent greatness, a radiant potential that instead of inspiring you, instilled a deep and terrifying fear, because true greatness, you perceived, comes with an immense weight of responsibility, an unsettling vulnerability, and the kind of visibility that inevitably makes one a target for wounds. So, you unconsciously agreed to remain hidden. You agreed to occupy a space beneath your potential, and in a profound spiritual misinterpretation, you began to label this self-imposed confinement as humility, but heaven regards it differently. Heaven calls it a binding agreement, a pact that has been hindering your destiny, an agreement that is now ripe for severance. If you just recognize the moment, a specific event, a specific verdict someone spoke over you, a specific season where that agreement was first made, type 444 in the comments. That number marks the presence of angelic witnesses. The same ones present when the agreement was formed are the ones watching you sever it right now. Because you were never divinely destined for mere comfort, you were born to be consequential. And this, my friends, is the very essence of what the stars are proclaiming. This is the heart of the celestial conversation. It is not a debate about your capacity to achieve remarkable feats by human metrics. It is a profound inquiry into whether you will finally align yourself with the divine declaration made about you before the dawn of time, before your family projected their aspirations onto you, before the world assigned you a predetermined role, before the accumulated wounds of your journey taught you to contract yourself, to diminish your own light. There was a word, a singular powerful decree, spoken over your very existence in the timeless expanse of eternity. And that word, that foundational truth, has been relentlessly pursuing you through every closed door, every seemingly random detour, every stark and desolate wilderness season. It has been a persistent, loving chase, endeavoring to guide you back into perfect alignment with the magnificent being you were always meant to be. Now we are entering a sacred space within this message, a realm that many are unequipped to navigate. But the fact that you are still here, that you have journeyed this far, signifies that you are ready. The single greatest impediment to your breakthrough, the deepest root of your stalled progress, is not the machinations of the enemy. It is not the lingering impact of those who have caused you pain. It is not even the broken agreement, as potent and real as that spiritual contract may be. The most profound block, the one lying dormant beneath all the others, is an unspoken, deeply ingrained belief that your own ultimate breakthrough would somehow be an act of injustice. A subconscious conviction that if you were to rise to truly ascend into your full potential, someone else would inevitably have to fall. That if you were to experience genuine celebration, it would inherently come at another's expense. That if you were to receive abundance fully, you would somehow transmute into a person you find undesirable. And so, you have been engaged in unconscious self-sabotage, driven not by a fear of failure, but by a profound fear of what your authentic success might cost the people you hold. Dear, this is not humility. This is an insidious lie that has masterfully weaponized your purest love against your divinely ordained destiny. Esther embodied this very confrontation with such potent clarity. She stood on the precipice of terror before approaching the king, not because she lacked inner strength, but because she was exquisitely human, acutely aware of the monumental stakes and the all-encompassing risk. And Mordecai's words to her were not gentle reassurances. They were a stark spiritual truth. He did not offer platitudes like, he declared, "And if you have been specifically chosen for this critical moment, removing yourself from that equation is not an act of humility. It is an act of profound abdication. You have been intentionally placed here in this specific epoch, endowed with this unique constellation of gifts, scarred by these particular wounds, woven from these precise stories, and forged through these very experiences. Not by chance, not as a cosmic error the universe is still attempting to rectify. You are a deliberate, irreplaceable thread in an infinitely grander tapestry, and the conversation unfolding in the heavens about you is not an inquiry into whether you are deserving. That question was definitively answered long before your first breath. The true essence of the conversation is a patient yet persistent inquiry. When will you finally utter your unequivocal, "And now prepare for the unexpected revelation," the final transformative layer that reframes everything you thought you understood? The two divine beings engaged in this profound, earnest dialogue concerning your life. They are not waiting for you to achieve a state of perceived perfection. They are not holding out for the day when every wound is healed, every fear is vanquished, every lingering doubt is dissolved, or when you have magically transformed into an immaculate version of yourself before they will advocate on your behalf. The celestial bodies, the stars themselves, are not holding their breath for a flawless human specimen. They are mobilized by a surrendered spirit. The breakthrough you have been yearning for is not contingent upon your readiness as you have narrowly defined it. It is contingent upon your willingness to move even when fear is a palpable presence. Your willingness to trust when uncertainty is the only landscape you can see. Your willingness to say yes to a calling that remains shrouded in mystery, a calling whose full scope you cannot yet comprehend, because true faith was never about possessing a panoramic view of the entire staircase. It was always about the courage to place your foot upon the first step, trusting implicitly that the subsequent steps would reveal themselves in perfect sequence. Type this in the comments: "I will not abdicate," because Esther's moment was not when the fear was gone. It was when she moved toward the king while the fear was still fully present. That is exactly where you are standing right now. This is your moment, not tomorrow, not when external circumstances magically align, not when you miraculously decipher the intricate how. It is now. This is the divinely appointed time, the season that prophets foresaw and chronicled within the unique narrative of your existence. The celestial alignments that were set in motion before your birth have converged over this present season, and heaven awaits, not with impatience, but with an eager, expectant anticipation, for you to cease negotiating with the magnificent greatness that resides within you, and to simply step forward into its light. Place your hand over your heart right now, feeling its steady rhythm, and speak these words with me, allowing them to resonate through your very being. I release every agreement I ever made with smallness. I release every covenant I entered into through pain, through fear, or through the suffocating expectations of others. I break alignment with every voice that was never heaven's voice, regardless of how long I have allowed it to dictate my reality. I declare with unwavering conviction that I am not behind. I am not forgotten. I am not too damaged, too late, or too ordinary for the extraordinary purposes that have been written over my life. I step into this season with an open hand and a surrendered heart. I say yes to the calling, even before I understand its full trajectory. I place my trust in the one who ignited that calling within me before I could even articulate a single word. I am not waiting for external permission. I have already been divinely granted it, and from this sacred moment forward, I walk as one who knows with absolute certainty that heaven is speaking my name, not as a cautionary echo, but as a powerful, compelling summons. I am ready. I am willing. What just came out of your mouth was not a performance. It was a severance. The agreement with smallness, the covenant you just released, does not become real because you declared it. It becomes real because you move from the other side of it. The person on your heart right now, the one you thought of while you were speaking those words, the one still inside the covenant, still calling the abdication humility, still waiting for the fear to leave before they step through the door. They are one declaration away from the same yes you just stepped into, through the link in the description or the pinned comment. A seed planted here is not generosity. It is the first act from the other side of the agreement. This is not charity. It is your yes made tangible the moment the declaration moves out of your mouth and into your hands. When you give, bring the specific agreement you just broke into your seed, the covenant with the version of yourself that stayed smaller than the calling. Place it inside. Let the giving be the moment you act as someone who is no longer bound by it. What I am praying over every seed, the original, yes, the one that existed in you before the agreements were made, before the wounds taught you to contract, before the fear of what your success might cost became the ceiling you kept hitting, the calling that has been pursuing you through every closed door, every wilderness season, every detour you spiritualized into patience, the one still waiting, not with impatience, but with the certainty that the appointed time has arrived, the relationship that the hidden agreement has been quietly limiting, the one where you have been showing up as the diminished version, because the full version felt like too much of a risk to the people you love. The deepest fear beneath the declaration you just made, that the yes you just spoke will meet silence on the other side. And that silence will confirm what the agreement always told you, that you were not actually the one heaven had in mind for this. Stop holding your hands closed, negotiating with the greatness within you, calculating whether your full yes is worth what it might cost. Waiting for certainty before stepping through the door that is already open is the very thing keeping the celestial conversation from reaching its conclusion on your behalf. Your divine verdict is not as far away as the distance between this declaration and its visible manifestation has made it feel. If this has become the place where the celestial conversation gets translated into something you can actually hear, where the verdict heaven already reached starts to sound like something you are allowed to believe, subscribe, not to follow content, to stay inside the frequency. Every message that comes through here is the next layer of a revelation that does not finish in a single sitting. Think of the one person whose name rose in your spirit while you were listening. Not the one who needs encouragement, the one still in the pit, still inside the covenant, still calling the abdication humility. Send this to them, not as a recommendation. Your sending is the moment the celestial conversation that has been happening about them finally gets a voice they can actually hear. Your share is not a forward. It is a prophetic delivery that was not by accident either. You were supposed to be here, and heaven saw you show up.